Polly Sits Tight by Ethel M. Caution. Polly held her breath and sat rigid. For the third time, the teacher had asked the question, and the last time he had looked directly at her. She knew the answer, too. It was an undisputed fact in room 11 that any time there came a question no one else could answer, a little black girl with stubborn hair and a voice like a lilting melody would be sure to know. Polly was the star scholar in the class, and although she seemed unconscious of her brilliancy, her teacher and her classmates were not. So now that the question had been asked for the third time and Polly's hand had not been raised, all the boys and girls turned to look at her in genuine surprise. And Polly's heart was beating a rapid tattoo within her, because she did know the answer. She had worked until late and had gone to bed determined to rise early in the morning and tackle the problem again. But about 2 o'clock, she found herself sitting bolt upright in bed, saying to the darkness, "Of course, that is the way it goes." And she lay back into untroubled sleep. Now it happened that Polly's mother was painfully poor, and also that shoes had an annoying habit of wearing out beyond repair. Today, Polly had worn her mother's shoes and would probably have to wear them several days, perhaps weeks, until someone gave her a pair or until she could save up enough to buy her own. The latter way meant a long way, for there was food, rent, fuel, and insurance, and her mother's health was breaking, so that Polly herself worked afternoons to help out. Polly thought of her card and the row of eyes. Not that she'd been a grind to make it so, but she'd come to be proud of her record and of the pride her class had in her. She knew the solution, but it meant going to the board to demonstrate. That would expose her shoes. The teacher was still looking at her expectantly. She dropped her eyes to the desk, and her glance fell on her paper-covered books, much marked after the manner of schoolgirls and boys. These words met her gaze. "Sit tight, little girl, sit tight." That was her motto. Her dad had given it to her unconsciously, and it had always come to her rescue. When she was a very little girl, she'd been playing with some children in the barn. Tiring of the usual games, one boy had suggested riding horseback. His fate would have had it the most restive horse appealed to them, and Polly was victim. From frequent pulling against its strap, it had weakened, and frightened by the children boosting Polly to his back, the horse gave 2 or 3 vicious tugs and the strap broke. Before anyone realized what was happening, he backed out of the stall and out of the barn and started away on a brisk gallop. Polly's father was working in a field nearby and, sensing what had happened, cupped his hands and called through them, "Sit tight, little girl, sit tight." And Polly sat tight until her father, on a swift horse, overtook her and brought her back to safety. Polly remembered else of her father. He died soon after. But that command hurled at her in time of danger, and it always stayed with her. It didn't take the tiniest fraction of a second for all these things to flash through her mind. False pride was galloping away with her. What was a pair of overlarge shoes against the faith the 20-odd persons in that room had in her? And what of her mother's faith in her and her own? Would they laugh at her feet? Then let them. Like an electric flash, her hand went up. The tension in the room was broken. "All right, Polly, I knew you could. Come to the board, please." Not one person saw her shoes. They just saw a black girl with beaming face, mouth tightly shut, head held high, go to the board and quietly but quickly and thoroughly demonstrate the solution to the problem that had baffled them all. But Polly saw her father trumpeting through his hands, "Sit tight, little girl, sit tight." All righty. So there are some questions. Okay, starting with 1. What does paragraph 3 reveal about Polly? There's more than one answer in these choices. Select all. Okay. Then some ask for definitions. Use context clues to figure it out. Don't go to dictionary.com. Okay. And as always, refer back to the passage for the answers.